important to take a moment to remember Chris Esparza, who was very much invested in this project. And for that, I'm going to call over Melissa Cerezo, who is the VTA Trans-Oriented Communities Program Manager, and often interact with Chris.
Thank you, Frank. Good evening. Before we begin tonight, we wanted to take this moment to honor and remember Christopher Joseph Esparza. He was a member of our 28th Street Little Portugal Community Working Group and just overall fierce champion and visionary of the Mayfair community and downtown San Jose, and just generally his cherished hometown of San Jose. Chris was most recently the Director of Community Development at the School of Arts and Culture, where he vigorously championed the La Avenida Development Plan and Cultural District, a place of inclusion, celebrated culture, rootedness, stability, and joy. And prior to his work at the School of Arts and Culture, he spent decades lifting up creative culture and community in downtown San Jose. For me, I admired how Chris saw the success of La Avenida and its vision interwoven with adjacent projects like the 28th Street Little Portugal Station, or Silicon Valley, the 5 Wings Urban Village plan. And he truly embodied a yes and approach that was inclusive. It fostered connection between diverse groups and interests in the spirit of forging a productive path. He could draw out our shared purposes so well to courageously build something new and innovative. And he brought that spirit in his contributions to the 28th Street Little Portugal Community Working Group, to the 5 Wings Urban Village planning effort, and to also our VTA 28th Street vision. And so this is something I'm very hopeful that we can continue to carry forward in his spirit and memory, is to build spirited connections, spaces and places for inclusion that honor community and create something new that brings out our full potential. So please join me in this moment of silence to honor our invaluable community partner and my friend, Christopher Esparza. Thank you so much.
For today's conversation, we're going to have 2 opportunities for questions, comments, for conversation. And we'll have 2 presentations that will precede each. The first one is going to be a more general discussion on phase 2, generally, an overview of it, and an update for all of you today. And the second one will be more specifically about 28th Street Little Portugal BART Station design. We'll be discussing the update and wanting to hear your thoughts and preferences. After that, we will have a quick moment where we will talk about the next steps. And as you can see, if you look around, we have an open house setup where we have several boards, each of them showing you something different. We have some voting boards here to your right, my left, and behind you, you have the map of the Silicon Valley extension and different options for the configuration of the station. So we'll talk more in detail about that following up. Before I move on though, I do want to note, we have people online and in person, obviously. And if you're online, you can participate by sending your questions and comments through the Q&A button. If you are here in person, you will see one of these cards. We have VTA staff around holding these cards. Kristen is going to be around as well. You can just flag her down, get a card, write your questions and comments, and I believe we also have pencils for pencils to do that. And in those moments where we have a moment for comments and questions, we'll go ahead and read your questions, read your cards, both online and in person. So with that, we're going to move to our first conversation, and I am going to quickly introduce the lead for the BART Silicon Valley Extension Project for VTA, Tom McGuire, and we'll also hear from Planning and Engagement Manager Brent Pierce on an overview of the project. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Frank, and thank you all for being here. Before I give you an update on a high level where the program's at, funding is at, or construction is at, I do want to reflect, share the purpose for the reason we're here tonight to listen and to hear your opinions, your feedback, what's going right, what's not going right about the program and the design. And I acknowledge that I think there's some folks in the room who were very clearly made it very clear to us earlier this year that their feedback wasn't fully acknowledged in the last set of drawings you saw, the last materials that were shown to the community. We are here to get ourselves on a better path, a more partner path with all the communities that this station will serve and transform over time. So thank you in advance for the feedback you give us. Thank you in advance for the comments you'll share, whether they're positive, negative, it all matters. It all helps us build a better station and helps build a better community. So that's the mindset that my team and I are bringing into this. I also have some really exciting, interesting news to share about where the program's going. So we're here because we are trying to complete the ring of rail around the bay that started over 2.5 decades ago when San Jose and Santa Clara County voters started taxing themselves and voting to support the extension of BART in Silicon Valley. And we know that, and many of us ride every day, the various extension, which we call phase 1 of BART Silicon Valley. Those first 10 miles were an important step, but they're not the final step. And our job, we talk about BART phase 2. BART phase 2 means bringing those tracks from Berryessa through Portugal, through downtown, all the way to Santa Clara. And when it's complete, we'll have the station here in the little Portugal community, but we'll also have the 2 stations downtown, a modern rail yard in Santa Clara, and of course the Santa Clara station. This project is one of the biggest public works projects ever undertaken in the South Bay. I thought it was the biggest public works project ever undertaken in the South Bay. When it is done, there'll be a train every 7.5 minutes leaving Santa Clara, traveling across San Jose, up into the Bay Area, connecting all the major central business districts, Oakland, San Francisco, San Jose. It'll transform mobility in our community. And I know many of you have had that dream for years and years. It's our job to get it done. Schedule wise, this is, for those of you who haven't seen the schedule, we are planning to get the BART Silicon Valley phase 2 open in early 2037. This is a long, we're in for a, that wasn't a very popular message. Shut the lights on. We're in for over a decade of construction. We're in for the long haul here. We're in good for the long haul. And you'll hear some comments later from my colleague, right, about how we're going to support the community, support small businesses, thrive through construction, and that the construction can be a win in the same way that the actual opening part will be. Let's talk about the most exciting news. We broke ground for this project, so we are under construction. We are building BART Silicon Valley phase 2 right now. On June 14th, community leaders, political leaders, going back, Mayor Gonzalez was there, Carlo Godino was there. Generations of Silicon Valley leaders came and broke ground over at a site in Santa Clara that we call the West Portal. That is where eventually we will be sinking a large tunnel boring machine to the ground and building a 5-mile long tunnel from Santa Clara all the way to the east portal, just past the 101, east of here, and, we're under construction. We also found out 6 weeks later that we're getting the second largest, we're getting the second largest award for a capital project for any transit capital project in the country with the Federal Transit Administration, $5.1 billion coming to San Jose Airport. That is actually very good. And it happened because this is a great project. It happened because the MTA believes in not just our team, but our city and our community's ability to deliver this project and to build the project on time and budget. Our elected officials, our delegation in DC went absolutely all out for this. Our local, our board members, our mayor, it was a tremendous effort to get those $5 billion that we've earned because we've been contributing our taxes, paying our fair share for years and years. Well, it's great to see the federal commitment here. That federal commitment means two things. It means we are under pressure to get that construction moving, to get our design completed. But we're also under pressure to demonstrate to the federal government that we are in partnership with our community. And again, that's what tonight is about, making sure that feedback reflects that partnership. And then we're ready to support the long-term development of Portugal, downtown, Santa Clara, transit-oriented development and community-oriented development. At $5.1 billion, it's a lot of money. It's the second biggest ever. It's the most ever project outside of New York City. Unfortunately, it is not every dollar we need to finish the project. And that's the challenging position that we, the project team, find ourselves in right now. You see on the screen is that pie chart on the right. So those numbers add up to $12.75 billion. That's the total cost of building this project, $12 billion. We've got a tremendous contribution, the light blue in the lower left-hand corner. That's the state, that's the local sales tax. Locals. That's the local sales tax contribution we've been making all these years. Well, that changes by on the right side, you see state and regional contributions. You see toll money. On the top, you see $5.1 billion from the federal government. That is as large a contribution as that is. It is a little less than we were hoping. We were hoping for $6 billion. And that does leave a gap, that to be determined $700 million. We are working right now to fill that gap through additional funding sources, but also by finding some efficiencies and cost savings. I'm just going to go without the mic here. To find efficiencies and cost savings and ways to deliver this project for less than the overall $12.75 billion. So we find ourselves at a really exciting juncture now, under construction, almost fully funded by the federal government, lots of support, lots of wind at our back in terms of funding and support. Sorry. But we still need to make some important decisions about the design. And again, the third time we'll come back to, that's what we're here for tonight. We're here to make sure that the voices of the community, your feedback about how the little Portugal station should work, how it should fit into the overall ambitions for a great plaza, great urban design, great transit development, are not lost in the really important, really hard decisions that our team has to make over the next few weeks about saving money and keeping this project moving forward. So I look forward to hearing all of your feedback and comments tonight. There's people all around here who are here just to hear from you. Your voice is so important in making sure this project is the signature project that all of us have been voting for and taxing ourselves for all these years. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Brett Pierce, who is going to talk a little bit about how we'll be working with the community through construction to make sure we fulfill our obligations in that way too.
Thank you. Good to see so many familiar faces. Again, my name is Brent Hurst, Planning and Engagement Manager for the project. So, as Tom mentioned, we've started construction. So, we really want to make sure you all are informed of the things that could affect you in your daily lives or your businesses. Our team will be doing a lot of engagement in the community as construction ramps up over the next couple of years. We have a project newsletter. We have a new project website that is actually launching on Thursday. It will have a very visible and transparent map of where the construction is happening in your community. You can always go to a singular place and see where there's major construction occurring. As construction really begins, our team will be knocking on doors, doing flyering, engaging with businesses, and engaging with you all to keep you informed. So if you haven't, given your email or your phone number, it's a good way to stay up to date on the project. I promise we won't spam you, but we generally send out good information on a quarterly basis. Specifically for businesses and for those that maybe own businesses in the local community, we're going to be having a program called the Thriving Business Program. This is a program that specifically will be helping small businesses during construction. For those that are affected or close to the construction, we'll have 3 things that we'll be doing to really help businesses. We'll have a marketing and signage program where we highlight businesses in the community, highlight you on VTA buses, at bus stops, on signage, city newsletters. The city is a strong partner on this program as well. We'll also be providing direct resources to the community. So if your business needs marketing support or accounting support, or how to learn how to do something, we'll be offering businesses as well to the community, additional resources. And then third, there will also be a direct financial assistance program. So those are for businesses that are in specific areas that will be affected by the most major elements of construction, say like sidewalk closure or lane closure, or something that will be directly affecting your data. And so if you're interested in that, we have some interest forms where you can talk to the staff members for that. So I think we're going to transition over to our first Q&A session, and Frank's going to lead us through that. So if you do have a card, let one of us know. We can read it. We can start with folks online.
Thank you, Brent. Okay, so we're gonna do a quick Q&A session this time around. Next time will be a little longer so that folks can learn about 28th Street Little Portugal, the design there, and you can ask questions from this presentation then as well. Want to check in with Adriano? Do we have any questions in the Q&A?
No Q&A questions online at this time.
Thank you. We do have one card here from the community. It says regarding the project elements, says I definitely want to see a combination of housing and retail commercial space. Retail and housing go hand in hand for a prosperous area. Okay. The general comment also applies to 20th Street. Go ahead.
We have one question asking how much is allocated for business assistance, marketing, and financial assistance?
I can take that. So our board of directors has authorized a program of about $15 million over 5 years. And so we have about $3 million per year once major construction begins. And about $2.5 million of that will go to direct financial assistance. And the remaining 500 will go to local resources and to marketing.
Okay, at this point, we have a couple minutes left. Does anybody in the room have any questions or comments they would like to make? Go ahead, Mr. Garza.
First of all, I want to thank VTA for being here. This is really important to this community. Again, my question goes back to, community safety. Are we going to get crossing guards from King Road to 24th Street on Allen Rock and Juliet McKee? Because we have kids walking from 21st Street, 20th Street to Antarctica. And we have parents with children walking the other way over the bridges. And as if you guys have seen it already, the protection gate at the 101 bridge over McKee Road has been damaged. It's been torn up. And if we don't get traffic to slow down and if we don't get crossing guards, our kids are going to get killed.
Thank you, Danny. I just want to say you all have a safety champion here in Danny, and we've had We've had some separate meetings with Danny to talk about this very thing, and we've engaged our peers at the city of San Jose, and we're working with the police department to address the concerns. So if you'd like to talk to us more, we can talk about that. We also have members of the city here that actually talk. Any other questions before we move on?
On vibration.
You're referring to
From
the roads?
outside.
Yes.
Are we drilling piles or are we driving piles?
Are we drilling or driving piles for construction?
Cause that's gonna affect how we do it.
Great.
So the specific issue of vibration impacting the Five Rooms Church and impacting all historic buildings all the way from Little Portugal through downtown. We're committed to instrumenting, monitoring, making sure that we're detecting any vibration issues that are taking place the minute they happen, so that we can modify our construction methods if we need to. That's kind of the state we are right now, is a lot of detection, a lot of data, so that a small problem doesn't become a big problem. And that's the commitment we're making here as well. So, and that'll be spelled out in much more detail as our construction management plans get rolled out.
Thank you. Okay, so with that, we are going to move on to the next presentation. I do want to know before I move on, the comments on the project elements. Whoever wrote this would like to refer you over to this section over here. You'll have some answers here about what the plans look like in this regard. Before I move on and give it over to Greg to talk about 28th Street, Little Portugal. Oh, actually, Grant, to start the conversation on 28th Street, Little Portugal, I want to make sure I note what's going to happen after this presentation. We are going to have a longer conversation, Q&A. I'm sure there will be many questions on design and on the station itself. And then we are going to open up the floor for folks to walk around, talk to VTA staff, ask questions, have conversation. We have an online survey that we want you to access as well. We have voting boards. If you are online, you'll get to use the QR code on the screen to access the survey there. And 20 minutes after, once folks have gone around, whoever's left in the room can gather over here. We'll have a conversation about the results before we close out. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Brent.
So a couple more things before we dive into the station details. Wanted to kind of start high level and just tell you about some of the other things happening in the community that either our partners, the city, are leading, that are important for the project, or that we're working with the city on. One of those is the Five Rooms Urban Village process. This is a high level, long range plan that is looking at the entire area around the station. So it's looking at new homes, different types of homes, places for jobs, places for new public spaces. And that's been an ongoing effort over the last year and a half. And then another important effort, kind of zeroing into the station area, is the 11 acres of space directly around kind of that blue station in the center. This is land that some of which will be used for the station, but once we're done with construction, also has the potential for additional homes, additional jobs, community gathering spaces, and parks. And so our other team at VTA, led by our transit-oriented communities team, Lissa and Christina here, and our consultant partners, has been engaging with you on what you really want this to look and feel like in the future, and how it will serve you as a community, whether you live here or you work here. So make sure you visit some of those boards here as well, so we have some details, and you can ask the staff questions about design, or give them preferences or things you'd like to see in the future as well. They're going to be engaging with you a little bit more in the fall or the winter, after we work through some of the details on the station, which is the purpose of why we're here tonight. Cover that. So building on some engagement we've done today, we've talked to you a little bit about our community working group. This is a group of community leaders that we engage with on a quarterly basis. We've talked to them twice, specifically about some of the content that we have here tonight. They provide us that feedback. And we made a commitment to come out to the broader community as well, you all here, and gather additional feedback tonight. So we're building on some of the feedback that those leaders in your community have provided. And are gonna be going over some of those details now. So let's invite Greg up. And Greg's gonna walk you through the 4 options and hopefully equip you to provide us some preferences later half of the meeting.
Thanks, Brent. My name is Greg Tebow, and I'm the Facilities Engineering Manager for the program. So I'm also working on all the stations, not just 28th Street, but also the New Hall Yard. I'm happy to see all the members of the community here. I am a member of the community. I did go to San Jose State. I'm a local of the area. I've been working in the transit industry for about 25 years or so. I'm working on various intermodal facilities around the country. So I did want to just introduce myself and welcome all of you here. Again, tonight we're going to talk mainly about 28th Street. We've got kind of 4 options to look at today. So I'm going to go through those in a little more detail, and then it'll go to your guys' questions. So this is the general opening day layout. We've got our station to the southwest corner of 28th Street and 5 Looms. This is kind of directly behind the church. We've got a future TOD site in blue. We've got our VTA parking garage and then some surface parking. Eventually, this whole area will get built out with transit-oriented development. So if you look over here, and Frank mentioned that, there's a lot of different future planning for a lot of mixed-use facilities all around this station. But today, we really want to talk about the areas that we're going to build as part of our program. The tunnel alignment, you can see is kind of gray hatch there. That goes through the parcel at about at an angle there. We are about 60 feet below grade with the tunnel, 60, 70 feet, so we are pretty deep. I know there's a talk about vibration. When you're down that deep, the vibration is kind of minimized when you're up towards the surface. But again, all of the facilities that are currently around this tunnel alignment will be monitored as we move forward. So these are kind of the elements we want to talk about today. The first item is the north end shaft. That is the farthest northern quadrant of our property. There's a lot of equipment, mechanical systems, electrical systems, things that service the emergency ventilation system within the tunnel on that northern boundary of the parcel. So I realize I'm getting into some technical details, but I just want to let you guys know that this facility, this 5-mile extension, has a lot of equipment that needs to come up out of that tunnel and surface at each 4 station, at each of the stations, right? To really have those 2 entrance and exit locations, which are called the portals, and then we've got our 3 stations along the line. So a lot of equipment, a lot of connections, a lot of cables, a lot of communication devices need to come up out of that tunnel and into the up into the surface. This is where we get our power, things like that. Item number 2 is our station itself. That's where we want to maximize opportunity for recreation and open space in the plaza. We do have about a 1-acre plaza area surrounding this station. So that's what we're really looking for. And we've actually tried to activate as much as we can around that plaza, including commercially leasable spaces and the future TOD in the corner. So those are things that we've been working on. These are the areas I talked about, which have to be above grade or below grade. There's a lot of detail here. We don't need to get into all of it, but some of the community members have asked, hey, what are these things that are around the station? This is what they are. We've got a lot of batteries, a lot of things that we need to do to service that station itself. So the 4 station configurations that we have to look at today are called underground, integrated above and underground, a consolidated building option, and then an above ground facility. These are really referring to a lot of those equipment elements that I talked about. So these things that we need to service the station with, we're going to try to tell you a little bit about whether they're going to be below grade or whether they're going to be above grade and you can actually see them. The biggest thing that we want to make sure we envision here is integrating folks to get into the station, but also we have to accommodate all of these exterior elements of work. So this is one option. The area in white around that station is what we call the underground option. That is where we have most of the equipment underground. So that'll be right below the surface, up to about 25 feet deep. And we'd have a lot of heavy equipment that would be there. We would also have some infrastructure facilities above grade. That is shown there in gray. So this is the area that's below grade. We have some areas above grade, and that opens this area up for a future TOD site. So this is the underground option. And again, we have some boards over here, and you guys can give us some comments and feedback on these 4 options that we'll look at tonight. This gives us a little more detail in terms of square footages and offsets. And this is the ultimate build out of that facility. So the majority of the facility for the station infrastructure is here. You cannot see the underground facility. It's right over in this area. And then we've got this above grade facility that we need here. And then we've got all these future buildings. Now, we don't really need to talk about all the future buildings surrounding the station tonight. Those are things that VTA will need to work with a developer on in the future. This $12.7 billion program builds the station, builds the tunnel, and builds some of those ancillary facilities. The other mixed use elements happen later when VTA gets the transit-oriented teams together and builds this thing out. We definitely can take comments, and that's what this booth is about over here. So please take a look at what's over there for the TOD. Okay, this is the second option. And I know it might be difficult to look at the differences, but before we had an option that had underground facilities over in this area. This one has an underground facility here. And this essentially extends from this underground shaft that goes all the way down to the tunnel. And then comes over here, and we've got a lot of facilities that are above grade and below grade. So there's elements of work that are both underground and above ground. We've also tried to keep some space in this corner here that we call a commercially leasable space. So that might be retail. It might be areas where we can get some people in there to sell food, or else have some other type of elements of interactive community engagement. We also have a pretty wide area here for future TOD development. This could also have ground floor activation as well as mixed use above. Right? So this could have housing, this could have office space, as well as a bunch of ground floor elements of work. So this is the option where we've got a connection to the tunnel, through the station, and then everything's kind of right next to it. And this is the build out of that scenario. As you can see, we've got kind of our grade, at grade, our above grade facility here. We've got a little bit of mixed use element here, and then we've got a large facility that we're able to build right adjacent to 28th Street. And then we've got our 1 acre plaza here. Okay, this third option consolidates that above grade facility with the station itself. So instead of having kind of 2 different buildings, we have 1 building that brings the station and all that equipment, mechanical, electrical, all of those things together in 1 building. One thing that this does do is allows, or doesn't quite complete a paseo all the way across. We do have a station that is fully integrated. And it also brings a little bit more of this infrastructure into the station itself. So the other options provide a little bit more open station feel. This one would keep the station a little bit more consolidated, a little bit more tight. This also has a pretty significant number of facilities below grade, and that is shown there in white patch. And then our last stop, and this is a close up of that view, we do have 2 entrances into the station. One entrance faces the corner of 5 Ohms and 28th Street, and you'll see all the way to Santa Clara Street. So that's kind of one of our view corridors, just to make sure people know where to go from Santa Clara, so they can see right down 28th Street and right into the station. And then a second option, or second entrance, which would be here, which would kind of line up directly with the future parking garage. This is the build out of that facility. And the last slide has an above grade scenario where our infrastructure building, almost all of it's above ground here. We do have a little bit less space for transit oriented development facing 28th Street. But we essentially keep everything above grade. We also do have a commercially leasable space between the station and this infrastructure building. So I will open this up to questions in a few minutes. Let me get a few more slides. These are the criteria that we want to talk to you about tonight, as well as things that we've done our evaluation of. Program cost is a big one that Tom mentioned. We've got our user experience. So how do people interact with the station? Whether the station is open, a little more open, whether it's a little closed, things like that. External facing impacts and construction impacts. The more we build underground, the more material we need to maybe move off site, which means we have a little bit more construction impacts to actually dig all that material up and out. And then the schedule, right? The more construction we have, the longer the schedule is, the more impacts we are to the area. All of these scenarios do not extend our opening day schedule, but it does impact our overall construction window in this area. Now, this slide has a lot of those things I just spoke about, cost, schedule, user experience, and then it has our 4 station options listed up above. So we've got the underground option, we've got the integrated above and underground, we've got our consolidated station, and then the above graded. And it gives you a little bit of a breakdown of what the differences are between the 4. This will be presented at each of the areas when you guys leave, when we go and look at each of these in a little more detail, so you can see this slide and read it, or it's in your packet there. So again, these are the 4 options that we wanted to present tonight. There is a vote board over there that we can talk to you about. And so those are the things we wanted to present. There is also another voting board, and it talks a little bit about more of the architectural features and some of the things that you look and see and feel when you go into these stations. We talked about what's most important for you. Is it things that might be in the plaza? Is it the look of the exterior of the station? Is it the look of the interior of the station? Those are the things that we also want to get your feedback on. And those are the things that really drive the user experience, right? So those are the 2 voting boards that we currently have. So we can open it up to questions. And we have one here, so I think the format, I'll let Frank talk through the format of the Q&A.
Okay, that's great. So we will alternate again between online questions and in-person questions. I know some people have already, we have one card here submitted, so I'll read this. I also saw a hand raised. Doesn't seem like we had any questions yet online. I'll start here, then I'll go on to folks who wanna raise their hands. Okay, first card says, all the stations shown are round. What are the design, engineering, and cost trade-offs between round or rectangular station design?
Great question. We have the ability to do a round or a rectangular station. I think the original concepts that we had were round. We then went to a square station. We thought that might save us some money. We've got some feedback from the community saying that no, a more rounded configuration is really what we want. So that's a great question. We can certainly look into it a little bit further. A station could be designed round or square, and it does, some cost is a factor there. If we do hear from the community that a consolidated building, a consolidated station approach is one we can look at further. It may have a rounded facade on one side and maybe a square on the other. Those are kind of some of the things in option 3 that I think is up on the screen. So anytime you introduce curves, typically it's a little bit more expensive. But again, I think we can kind of work through that as we move forward.
Okay, looking at the corner line, it doesn't seem like there are any online questions yet. I'll keep going with these cards. It says, how essential is proximity of infrastructure facilities to the station?
Another great question. It is very essential to have all of those infrastructure facilities directly adjacent to the station. As I said before, this tunnel is 6 miles, 5 miles long. When we come out of that station, the longer we bring things away from it, the more expensive it gets. There are thousands and thousands of conduits, electrical, cables, infrastructure, communication wires. As soon as you start bringing those wires further and further away, the more expensive it gets. And then also you lose signal and you lose voltage drop. So technically you can't bring them far enough away. You actually have to have these electrical transformers right where the power drops into the station. I've got into a little technical detail there, but it is absolutely critical to have these things as close to the station as possible. That also keeps costs down.
Thank you. Next question says, if all surface parking is replaced with TOD, transit-oriented development, then the only parking garage will be some distance from the station entrance. Not a question, a comment. Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, so when these TOD developments occur, there will be integrated parking into those, and that'll have to happen as they get built out. So each kind of quadrant, each block, as they build out, we'll need to replace the overall parking count that we have. We need, I think, about 1,200 spots in this facility for all the BART program. So right now, we're looking at about 800 spots in the garage, and the rest is at surface. But as soon as we go ahead and build those out, we'll need to have more parking in the TOD development. The reason why the garage is in that corner is it's the furthest away from the residential and other areas. We kind of want to keep it in that corner that's facing 101. A lot of times people don't want to see parking garages next to their houses. So that's why it's a little bit further away. So it does have a little bit of a walk, but it's not that far away.
Okay, next question is, what studies have been done in local traffic / foot traffic and the effect this will have on, issuer or mitigation?
Yeah, there's been a lot of studies on pedestrian flow and bicycle flow. I think there is one of the pedestrian access slides over here actually has a very good graphic of exactly where pedestrians will come from. Most of them will actually be coming from St. John. We'll actually have a bike and ped friendly route that'll go directly to this area. There'll also be another trail that'll be integrated as part of a future program, which is going to take over the existing rail corridor adjacent to 28th Street. So you guys know the rail corridor that runs right along here. Well, there's a future build out for a trail that interconnects the whole community along that alignment. So there'll be a class 1 bike lane. There'll be a way to get to and from the station, pedestrian and bicycle, by means of bike and scooters.
Next question, then I'll take Jenna's question. What is currently the largest bottleneck for this project? In my opinion, 14 years to complete a 6-mile extension to the line.
Tom, you take that one.
I mean, I can make you say it, but it's really my job to say it. This is, like I said, this is the biggest public works project in the history of Santa Clara County. And to build a tunnel that long, to build 4 stations of this complexity and this integration with the community, it is just not like when the original BART station was built. Like much of the original BART station was built with freeway medians as the freeways were being built, where there were simple outdoor elevated stations. It's a very complicated project. The design is intentionally integrated into the BART communities. And we're trying to build it in a way that will not be as disruptive as previous tunnel projects have been in cities that have been built. So we're building a deep bore tunnel very far underground, so that you don't, shut down downtown San Jose for years and years and years. The trade-offs, however, are that, it just takes a little longer to build like that. That said, we show 2037 as the opening date. There's a lot of contingency built into that. So if we don't hit unforeseen obstructions underground, if we don't have trouble getting our contractors on board, if we don't have trouble acquiring that last piece of land we need to build, and those are all very real possibilities. Those things are what we're planning to have happen. If those contingencies don't materialize, we'll beat that schedule. Having said all that, I think the history of this project, the history of projects like this around the country, it is better for us to give you a date that is conservative, needed, than to overpromise something and miss it. I think that's just the lesson we've learned to make projects. So that's all.
I'm gonna hear from you over here and then we'll go back to some.
Hi, my name is Jean-Marie White. I'm a neighbor here. Very excited about this project. So I'm trying to understand what we're trying to help you with tonight. Seems like you're showing us 4 options about infrastructure thing that none of us understand what that is for, and we don't really probably care what that is. I think the only thing that that I notice here is that the TOD, the transit-oriented development, would change in size. And I think that's really important. Like, to me, what's the most important thing here is that we increase the density of housing here. So the other thing that you didn't mention at all is like the cost, like what are the cost trade-offs? You just showed like $2 signs versus 3. I don't know what that means either. So I don't know how we can help you here with this, because basically I think we need to optimize housing, and the rest, like where you put your janitor's closet, like I don't think it matters.
Yeah, no, I get it. The dollar signs are representative of about $10 million. So the underground option is about $30 million more than the above grade option. So that's where the cost comes. And yes, as you said, the driver here is either being able to see an infrastructure building or have it below grade and cost us more money. When we do some of those things, we have trade-offs, right? When we put things below grade, it's a little more expensive, okay? So now we need to find the money to do that. When we put everything in terms of a TOD, a transit-oriented development, and we just have that build out, well, then you gotta put things underground, which costs a little bit more money. So really, that's the four different options here to look at, is where are the trade-offs? Are we okay with having half of the facilities underground and half of it above ground and try to maximize that TOD along 28th Street? Is that acceptable? Is everybody okay with that? We want to get your feedback. So absolutely, those are the things that we really want to hear from you. And I realize some of this is technical, and I'm trying to explain it as best I can. And I think that's why we want to have another half hour for you guys to actually ask all those questions at each booth and get those. But hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, is like the infrastructure, is there anything for us to worry about? Like, are we?
No. How tall are they? So that infrastructure building might be between 20 and 30 feet tall, so a little bit taller than this building. This room is about as tall as we need for some of the big, huge pieces of equipment. So just think about that. This room that we're in right now, we need some big transformers that are about 10 feet tall, and then we need a room above it to actually go and maintain them. And we got conduits that come out of them, conduits that come in from underground. So that's, some of these rooms that we're talking about are literally as big as this facility right here that we're in terms of scale.
And maybe to just add to what Greg said, I admit that we're into some pretty nitty-gritty technical stuff, and we want to get feedback on things that maybe other projects, maybe other places, other projects might just do that behind the scenes. But we did hear very, very strongly in February and March and throughout the spring that it was important to work these details out in a more public and transparent way, and that's what we're here today. We also heard that it was really important to make sure that no matter what we do with infrastructure, above, below, whatever, that we preserve the opportunity for a big and great plaza space So that's one thing that you shouldn't see a difference between the options. If all these options do create the opportunity for that, full 1 acre plaza to be located on the site. Where it's located, how it interacts with the station, we'd like to feedback on that.
All right, so noting the time, we're gonna take the questions that I have on hand, and I know that there is a question online here as well. And then to the question that was just asked, we'll open up the floor for any manner of question to be asked. And, for you to take a closer look at the different station options. So with that, let me go online and hear what questions we've got.
We have one question from Manuel from SB at Home, and he asked if the above ground and integrated above ground options, which were placing station facilities above ground, if they would cut the number of TOD housing units at all that are envisioned, and which configurations would then produce the highest density of housing.
I believe we have to actually, Christina can answer that one too.
Thanks for the question. So there's a board over here that shows kind of what is envisioned for the total build out of the full 11 acres. And it's not that more station above ground or below ground would affect the overall build out that we're trying to achieve across the site, but just within that block that is specifically adjacent to the station. It would affect the size of a building that could potentially be housing with commercial space below. So that's the factor that would get impacted by the different options.
So it's really the size of the building, but I believe the number of units and the square footage has to be maintained with all 4 options. Is that right? Yeah. So the number of units, this total square footage of office space, all of that would be maintained by either going with another floor on one of the other buildings, because the transit-oriented development is part of a whole program of this whole area. So even if we make one area a little bit smaller, we just maybe have to put another floor in one other area. So we'll be able to maintain those, right?
Okay, related, forgive me if it was answered. How many TOD transit-oriented development units per option? I.e. apartments or retail units?
So that's kind of what I was just saying. It's not really specific to the options, but I will say that the difference is in 2 of the options, can we pull the options back on screen? Yeah, actually Lauren might know more of the number of guesstimated units, but the differences here are, so in the underground option on the left, the future TOD is completely separate from any station facilities at all. The second option, the future TOD has an opportunity to be 90 feet deep on the 28th Street side, so that allows, 60 feet is a good depth for having retail or commercial activated on a ground floor. So this 90 feet kind of makes it so that you can either have 60 on the left side, on the right side, or on the bottom coming from 28. So there's more frontages that can have activated space. And that kind of wraps the station facility building that is located right behind it, so you don't notice that it's there. And then the BART team is including that little corner of activated space near the other entrance of the station as well. So that kind of also maps the building. But that TOD would be directly adjacent to the facilities structure of the station. And there will be a little paseo or pathway that is in between the station and the future TOD in that instance. So the third option, also similar to the first option, includes a completely standalone TOD structure. So it wouldn't have to, it wouldn't be affected at all by the station infrastructure building. It could just be developed on any of the sides, but would likely be activated on the 28th Street side, since that's where a lot of bicycle and pedestrian traffic is expected. And then the fourth option with the above ground, it's very similar to the second option, and it's just, it's a shallower depth. So instead of 90 feet, from 28th Street, it's only 60, but that is still a good amount of space for putting in some sort of development that has an active ground floor as well, and then housing or something on top.
Okay. Running a little short on time, so I'm gonna take another two. We're gonna open up the floor, 20 minutes, we come back, 10 minutes before 8 o'clock. We'll do the rest of the questions, if that's okay with folks. Next question, how will the public be able to get involved with aesthetics and people movement design? When will the DRC start meeting?
So there is some slides over here related to the public aesthetics, so please provide some comments tonight. So tonight is your opportunity to do it. We are gonna have some DRC, which is called the Design Review Committee, and that'll happen in the next few months. Once we kind of get a station design refined, then we can get into more details on the aesthetics and the look and feel of the station. That's what the Design Review Committee is. We've got, I think, 11 members of the Design Review Committee for this station. There's a Design Review Committee for each of the stations along the alignment. So again, if you have very specific comments you want to have addressed, please put them in the voting board over there.
Just to add, the design review committee is made up of city staff, VTA staff, and also community. So there's different groups involved in this.
Great.
I also want to note that for members of the public, there will be a public engagement period following our DRC members group discussion, and so that will be opened up both online and in person for engagement there. So nobody's left uninvolved there.
Yeah, good point. There will be additional outreach just like this to talk about a lot more details on the aesthetics in 2025 next year.
Great. Okay, last question again. We'll open up the floor and folks can hang around. We'll come back at 7:50, have the rest of the discussion. It says, why such a large plaza area? With 7-foot intervals, you will have riders quickly coming and going, cannot have it crowded with stationary activities or children playing.
Well, I think we've heard from the community that the plaza is absolutely a critical element of our program. And so that's what we've heard from our outreach over the last 10 years, and we've been working on this. So we consider that to be part of an integrated element. Now, there's a lot of different options we can have on that plaza, from different types of stage structures, different types of site furniture, different types of kiosks and things that we can have people interact with. It is a BART station. That's what we are here to build, is a transit station, so we can get people on BART. But we think people are going to be using that plaza not only to take BART every 7 minutes or 7.5 minutes, but also to engage in the whole community. There'll be ability to do outdoor events there. There'll be a lot of different opportunities for the community to have a space to go. And really, that's what it is. And if you look at some of these other boards, you'll see across the street on the other side of 28th Street, there's also a park plan as part of a different program. So this whole area is going to be transferred. Yeah.
Thanks, Greg. So with that, we're gonna have a quick conversation about next steps before we break out and take a look at these boards. I'm gonna read through these. Some of this was already discussed, but after today, we're going to of course review the feedback that we received both online and here in person. The selection of the recommended concept option will follow. The third next step is that we'll share a path forward with the community and Barstow Valley Phase 2 Extension Oversight Committee. The community will be able to share feedback on the future development of the station area in late fall of this year. And lastly, the community will be able to share feedback on the look and feel of station elements late this year into early next. So that answers some of the questions that we had on engagements. Going to show this here, we'll come back to the screen for our online folks. We have an online survey for you that also allows you to give us feedback on the different station build outs. And gonna show you this quick schematic of the room. To your front right over here, you will have the design development framework boards. To your direct right, you will have the voting boards. And then behind you, you will have the above ground option from your back right to the integrated above and underground option next to it, followed by the consolidated option right over here, back left. And lastly, the underground option. So take a look around, walk around, just gonna read through a couple of names if you have particular questions, and then we'll check in with you, Mr. Garza. So number one, we have phase 2 and funding, referring to Mr. Tom McGuire. Engineering and design, Greg Tebow. Construction elements, Erica Rose, back here. Current site control, Craig Constant, over here. Future development, that would be Christina Gotuaco, right to my left, to your right. And lastly, thriving business program and construction outreach, that would be Matt Derby. Matt Derby. Oh, there you go. Okay, we can hear from you, Mr. Garza, and then folks can get up and walk around.
Real quick, you know, the statement we made that nobody knows who the CWG is. Maybe next time in the future, so that the community's not in the dark. Okay, those people are putting their heart and soul into this for the community. The other thing is, for the look, that was brought up, right? It needs to reflect the church and the flavor of the community. Then the last thing is, we need to make sure that whatever small businesses we have there are productive and survive. That means that we're gonna have to sadly move the little park away. Now, they're gonna move across the street to the park, but that's the city's problem. What I don't want is I don't want any of the businesses, any of the restaurants in Alamac Avenue to suffer. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. With that, I want to encourage people in the room to get up and walk about. We will come back at 7:50 with the last 10 minutes. We'll read through these remaining comments. We'll answer your questions, and we'll be available to have conversation with you.
Sure, absolutely. So if money was no object, clearly the underground
link for the other stations downtown as well. Once you start building on top of these stations, you've got to design to a really robust design criteria to meet our standards. So you cannot have a lot of facilities on top of them that do not meet the seismic criteria and the safety criteria for a public infrastructure. Essentially, we don't want to build a light industrial facility on top of this thing, because when an earthquake happens, it's gonna fall down and destroy the station. So in order to actually do something above the station, the cost of development is fairly high. It can be done, but the cost to develop above a station is much greater than developing adjacent to it. So that's really the discussions that we've had with the development team, is the cost associated with building on top of these stations is by far above and beyond what is dictated by the folks who want to make investments and actually build developments.
Great. Can you talk also about how we need access to the station facilities?
And we do need access to the station facilities above, so some of these do have rooftop elements like HVAC systems. We do have our emergency ventilation system, which actually will extract if there's a fire in the tunnel. That there's gonna be a smoke evacuation system, actually pull everything out, and we need to have that daylighted. So that's part of the reason why we have to connect to the station drum itself and go out if there's a fire. There's also air that needs to come in. Right, so we're pumping air in, or we're taking smoke out. If we need to.
Okay. This question might be related already answered, but I'm committed to reading every question, so I'm gonna go for it. Okay. Says, how does the determination of above versus underground for the infrastructure facilities affect security concerns for those facilities? Example, seismic effect, severe weather, vandalism, etc.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. As I said, the seismic events are all very robust in terms of design criteria. Security measures will be essentially met whether we're below grade or above grade. So there are specific criteria that we need to meet in order to have a public transit facility constructed. And that's part of our analysis related to security. So I can't get into many details on that, but they will be secure. In terms of vandalism, things like that, you know, if you put things below grade, it's very difficult to vandalize. So to upgrade, it's a little bit easier. So that's another reason why options to consider here.
Okay, we have 3 more questions.
I will say there is a BART police station that will be at this site. So just in case in terms of security and things of that nature, we do have an on-site BART police facility that will be built into the station infrastructure building, right adjacent to the station.
Okay. It's 3.5 questions. I'll go for the next one. It says, might the neighborhood residents be able to use the BART garage for free or reduced fee because of inadequate neighborhood parking even today?
I think the VTA BART parking structure, this will be owned and operated by VTA, which is similar to the current parking facilities at the Milpitas and the Berryessa stations. So that will be operated by VTA throughout its lifespan. And so there'll be an opportunity for people to park there for any other type of events, not just going to the park station.
Yeah, they're open to the public, so you can pay to park there for whatever you do.
And as I said, this is a VTA facility. We are allowing BART to operate their trains on our facilities, but this is owned by the taxpayers of Santa Clara County. And we actually just have BART come in and operate and maintain this facility for us, right? So that's just kind of let everybody know that.
Well, just to follow up on the question a little bit, because they didn't know reduced fee or free. I'm assuming that's TBD, or is that not possible?
I'm not really sure.
Right now, our 2 other BART garages have costs. So for the garages that we'll be building for phase 2, we haven't determined totally what those will be yet. We generally do that analysis towards the end of the project, but there will likely be a fee to work with the projects, which is part of VTA's revenue policy.
What's the current?
$2 or $3.
$3.
Erica, who's our expert, $3.
Per day or per hour?
It is per day.
Okay. Okay,
It's much cheaper than other park facilities throughout.
so, okay, next question says, this project is in a flood zone and you're adding a lot of hard surfaces. What architectural elements will be added to mitigate community watershed?
So the drainage facilities out in the plaza, there'll be a lot of, what we call best management practices and various drainage treatment facilities that'll be located throughout the site. We know all the criteria related to that. This facility also has a 500-year floodplain, elevation. So a lot of these stations, we need to build them a little bit higher, so that flood water out of 500-year event, which means it has a chance to happen once every 500 years. Does not enter into the tunnel. So all these stations will be built a little bit higher than the grade. Here we don't have any staircases or anything like that. So yeah, we do mitigate flood criteria as well as just standard 10, 25, 50-year rainfall events. And those will all be treated in terms of the stormwater management plan and then discharged into the storm drainage system.
Okay, next question, 28th Street and Julian intersection with highway, or with highway exits, I'm guessing, are already dangerous. What will be done to mitigate that danger?
I believe there is a future plan for the Julian Street area that the city of San Jose is working towards.
Good evening, I'm Jessica Zink. I am with the City of San Jose Department of Transportation, so I will take this. We are working on some near-term and some potential long-term safety improvements in this area. The near-term ones are more kind of like what can we control without changing the Caltrans right of way. And we're at a very early stage of exploring options in that urban village process, the urban village process that the team mentioned earlier. We are looking at very high level at what people are interested in, if they are, to make some, potentially big changes to either Trillium or Croft to help with that safety, that walkability, and maintain operations, etc. So if you're interested in that, definitely let us know. But we don't have anything immediate in terms of the actual highway interface. I'll be clear about that. Thank you.
Thanks. And the last question of the evening is this tunnel longer than the one from West Oakland BART to Embarcadero?
I can take that one. The distance from West Oakland Park to Embarcadero on the base, that's 7 miles. This tunnel is 5 miles long, a total of 6 miles from area to Santa Clara. I don't know that's in the tunnel. So the tunnel will be a little less, but of course there'll be 4 stations instead of just the 2 that you see in that.
Thank you. So
I do have one question. I haven't heard anything about solar at all in none of this. Oh, I don't need that. I'm out. So we have rooftops and all that good stuff, and by the time, 2,900 when it's open, things are gonna be changing. Are there gonna be like solar towers, cell towers for cell phones? People are gonna be probably throwing cover driving by that time. But are there gonna be any opportunity for that?
Yeah, as part of VTA's commitment to sustainability, there would definitely be opportunities for various types of sustainable measures, including solar. There'll be our charging stations. There'll be a lot of different things happening. Currently designing these to be built solar ready, like the parking garage. And then once we actually build this thing and we get into a leasing agreement with the solar company to come out here and put the infrastructure on, similar to the solar panels around the roof down in the area. So there's definitely opportunity for the parking garages to have some solar on. The stations themselves are pretty small, so there's not a lot that happens. Plus, again, there's some equipment up on top of those. But yes, absolutely, there's opportunities for additional sustainable infrastructure, sustainability programs. We will be achieving Envision Platinum. So Envision is a rating system for infrastructure facilities. That is our goal, is to achieve the highest level, which is Platinum. Some of you may have heard of LEED Gold and LEED Silver.
Yes, I think.
There's another great
Oh,
criteria
but we've
for
got something at KH at some point.
that one is for mainly buildings. The vision criteria is for infrastructure programs. So we are aiming for the top, platinum. G.
Okay.
Like solar trees versus a lot of lighting.
So we do have skylights in the top of these stations right now, which will allow for daylight to come down that drum. But once you get kind of past that initial part of the drum, you're not gonna get much into the tunnel. Once we build that tunnel, we do not want to drill holes in that, any reason whatsoever. You know, we're gonna be 70 feet below grade, there's high water table down there. You know, we really are trying, anytime you drill or puncture a hole through that concrete tunnel, we have a problem.
Okay, so for our last question of the evening, we have a question online, and then we'll close for sure. Thanks, everybody, for hanging around.
Yes, Gene had a question of whether the infrastructure buildings would be giving off any noise. Like, will they buzz like compressors? And if so, they should be far from the plaza. There was also a comment that when considering arrangements, please consider the sun and shade impacts, as well as the creation of blind spots in public spaces. But the question was around noise of the station infrastructure facilities.
Thank you. Yeah, we will definitely look at the plaza infrastructure in terms of visible spaces and make sure it's wide open. There will be some elements of work that do generate noise. We do have to have those encapsulated by a building or a courtyard element. So for instance, a generator might be needed out there. We're only going to use the generator once a month to turn it on, to exercise it. And then if the station does have a power outage, we turn that generator on. So that's just one item. There's also these very large pieces of electrical gear, like transformers. Those do create buzz. However, those transformers will be surrounded by a sound attenuation sound screen, so to speak, whether it's encapsulated in a room like this, or whether it's in a courtyard and stuff. So if you go to Milpitas Station, there's some transformers that are behind the screen. You can't even really see them, you can't hear them as you walk around that station, but they're there. You don't quite know where they're at.
Thanks, Greg. Just want to highlight what's here on the screen behind me, and then we'll have a ton of work closes out. If you're wanting to stay involved, we will continue to have community events and touch points like this. We'll have pop-ups at community events. You'll see us around. If you want to know exactly where we're going to be when, I encourage you to go to vta.org/about/subscribe and add your email there. There you'll know when there is a CWG meeting, when there is a pop-up somewhere, when there is a community meeting like this one. On the right, you have some resources, including some of our social media handles, a general email address that you could reach out to with questions, and a hotline number that you can call and leave us a message there. I will give it over to Tom.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. You've already given us so much of your time. You've planned San Jose. You've spent in a lot of places. You could have been home watching the DNC, but you spent it with us. So thank you for that. I'm going to say for the fourth time, we're here to listen. We're here to take the feedback and take all the ideas, all the questions, all the preferences that you voiced today, and like turn this into an even better project as we navigate this really exciting year ahead. We want to go from having a shovel in the ground to really having a fully funded project that is racing towards full construction. Your feedback matters. Thank you for giving it to us, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.